Man, the new year. I want to send a big shout out to all of my New Year's resolutions. Fight for the new year. Make money. Get educated. Get a degree. Get a new job. Get a promotion. All the resolutions you have, get your marriage together. Get your household together. Get your religion together. Whatever it is you're trying to do, I want to send a big shout out to you. Go get it. It's a new year, a new opportunity, a new day, and I want you to be great. Let's get these goals written down, get these goals solidified. Let's work on. Let's put a plan, work the plan so we have success. Doc, how you doing this morning, big brother?
Man, happy New Year, man. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be doing what we love so much, man. Trying to help as many people as we can while we helping ourselves. Man, this stuff is necessary. Like doing this has been such a huge benefit just to me by myself.
Yep.
You know, I've been able to help improve myself, realize a couple of things that I've been doing wrong, do a couple of things differently, and I've been able to affect the people around me, man. So that's the best.
It's something about saying some of the things we say out loud and to somebody else, more specifically in my case, somebody I respect, that makes me kind of hold myself to a different standard than when you just think yourself in the mirror.
Yeah. You got to say it out loud, man. And I mean, look, it's been over a year. We've been doing this for about a year, man. And, you know, for people that's out there that's watching, you know, this is a men's space, men's channel, but our angle is to help ourselves become better and to help ourselves understand what's happening in the world and how we can navigate it. So if you want to be a part of that, you know, keep going. We got a number of people that's been tuning in, helping us out, saying things. And I appreciate it. I mean, that's been wonderful.
Yep. We love the interaction. We love the comments. We love to know how other people are thinking. Because sometimes, you know, you have an idea and you think it's right, or sometimes it's incomplete. And it's amazing how much a comment can make you feel like, okay, I was on the right path, or that's the part I was missing.
Yeah.
A lot of times we say some things and we're live on air trying to develop an idea, and one of the guys will chime in with something, and it's like, oh, that's the part we was missing. Like Gus does a lot of that.
Oh yeah, he hit home runs every time he come on.
Yeah.
And to see the train of thought as we're going through the topics, you know, it's developing as we're going. So you can't beat that with a bat.
No, you can't beat it, and I think that's one of my favorite things about it, which is also why I want to continue to grow the group, because the more ideas and thoughts we get in here, the more completely and thoroughly we can have insight about the world around us.
Exactly, man. So you know, I had an idea for a topic today, but after talking to you this morning, we probably need to shelve that and expand it some more, because you brought in some other stuff. Unless we want to still kind of talk about it.
Well, I think it's worth mentioning, coming into the new year, and it was kind of a topic that hit a few times throughout the year last year, especially as we closed out the year, and being that we both are, and this channel is largely about men being better men and being fathers. I think it's worth mentioning. We all been out seeing the incidents between 50 Cent and his son, Master P and Romeo.
Yeah.
And, I think it goes the biggest thing I took from it is there's a massive difference between maintaining or just paying for, or just provision, and actually raising a child.
I mean, I would agree. And I guess, wow, this expanded because it hooked into some other conversation I had this week. But the title of the show was going to be "He Is Me." You know, I use that a lot.
Right.
He is me, because I want to show that what other men are enduring, we are enduring the same things, just on a different scale.
Correct.
And in this instance, Master P, you know, what happened was he was when the dude died, DJ Twitch, Master P put out something, kind of talking about that, just saying some positive stuff. And I think this came from hurt feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hurt from what happened because his daughter died from an overdose.
Mm-hmm.
And his son was upset because he said, you know what, you talking about this dude, but you ain't saying nothing about your daughter.
Right.
And there's so many things to pick apart in that because, one, dad's hurt too.
Yep.
And sometimes things are hard to talk about.
Yes.
Two, it's not his fault. So things that our children do, we raise them and we steer them in the direction, but they still are responsible for themselves. And some things we can't control.
Right. Well, it's a couple of things that come to my mind about this. First and foremost, it's easier, at least for me. I'm speaking for me at this
Mm,
point. I can far easier have a conversation about this person or that person out there in the world
mhm.
and about my actual child, especially in the situation of death. Probably for me personally, I probably wouldn't want to talk about it to anybody ever.
Right.
And this would be a conversation that people who are close to me would know, or we don't have that conversation.
And the question is this. Now I have an idea why, but I want to ask you, why would that be? Why do you think you would do that? Like, let's say if your son or daughter did the same thing and, committed suicide or whatever, or, whatever. And why would it be like, I can't discuss it?
Well, first off, the loss. The loss would be something I wouldn't want to keep dredging up, and then that's how I look at it, which is probably
Mhm.
wrong. Might be a bad approach,
Mhm.
but I look at it as I don't want to keep dredging it up and going over. And then two, I would probably, the way I'm set up, I would probably look at it as largely a failure on my end.
Mhm. Yeah.
What did not give my child where they felt like they could come to me when they were struggling?
Right.
What did not give why didn't I know my child was struggling? How far did I leave the relationship with my own child that I didn't even know they were struggling on that level?
Right. Well, to that, I would say this though. Um, and being a teacher, I get to see a lot of things. And I get to see a lot of the relationships between parents and children. And I get to see the dynamics of all of that. And one, I guess in terms of relationships, if somebody want to hide something from you, they can. If they really want to hide it, they can hide it. And you know what hiding it looks like? A couple different things. One, it can look like just being in your room playing video games all day. It can look like that, or it can look like being excessively talkative.
Mm,
Somebody can have a good mood all the time, and they talking to you a lot and doing all this stuff because they do that to distract you from what
right.
they feeling inside.
Correct.
Um, and I was thinking what you said about feeling like a failure,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the first thought came to my mind.
Mm,
Um, and I had a parent. Because y'all know I teach school. And I had a parent, and the kid in question is dealing with some psychological issues. I'm talking about like some serious
mm-hmm.
schizophrenic type stuff. And the parent we were talking to just kind of broke down crying and was like, I did everything I could. I can't, but, and that leads me to this point is that everything not your fault. You can't help the fact that the chemicals that's in this kid brain not
Right.
mixing the right way. You can't help the fact that we can't find the right medication because it's so bad. Like people say, "Oh yeah, she just need to be more involved or do this or that." Man, when I call this parent and they come in, they got a binder full of every piece of paperwork that kid ever went to and been through.
Mm,
So that ain't the case.
right.
So I said all that to say everything not your fault. Um,
Well,
it
I
take
feel
it's a
like
two party.
that failure thing comes from we've all in the last 20 or 30 years we've all become more accepting of mental health and therapists and psychologists. And one of the overwhelming things that we hear is most people's problems stem from childhood.
Yeah.
So if you're the parent, you know you were the provider of and the large part of that childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're hearing that the child's problems probably stem from childhood, you have that in your head, and then something like, God forbid, something like a suicide or these type of acts happen, you immediately you say, oh, where did I mess up? Where did I go wrong?
Right. And I think I would do the same thing. No lie, I would. Um, but at the same time, when you talk about childhood, and I'll reveal some about myself, and I think I said this before, um, I had to be like middle school age, you know, 12, 13 years old, maybe 10. And at one point, I stayed in the house, right? Stayed in the house a lot. And what I did in the house was, I used to play Nintendo, you play Mario Brothers, but I stayed and I never went outside. I stopped going outside for a period.
Right.
And my dad was like, you got to get off that game. You got to get outside. So he this is more creative thing ever. He didn't take the whole game. He just took the plug from the back.
There you go.
So I couldn't do anything. But he never knew the reason why. And I never told anybody until recently the reason why. And it was because of the other people in the neighborhood. They used to pick on me all the time.
Mm.
And it got so bad that I stopped going outside. So it wasn't that I was addicted to video games. It was the fact that I was trying to avoid having to go outside and deal with these people. And for me, I never told my dad that. To this day, I still never told him. So, how could he be responsible for that when he never knew?
Well, he knew something. He knew enough to know it was a change in patterns for you.
Mm-hmm.
So at least he was present enough to realize my son has had a change in pattern, and maybe what he's doing right now is not the healthiest pattern for me to let him get into. So, as a tradition of black fathers around that time, I'm not going to talk to you about the problem. I'm just going to tell you how to solve it.
Yeah. And, and I'll say this to anybody that knows my dad, who knows the pastor, to me, that is my hero.
Mm-hmm.
Graduated high school, didn't go any further. Always downplayed and said that he was a dummy and a C student. But the smartest man I know. I mean, like, just when we do stuff for him, and I always say this, and it gets me emotional inside, because it's like, if something was to happen to him, now he's like 72 now, but those are shoes that's too big for me to fill. And my feet are bigger than his at this point, but I can't even put those shoes on. But he did but I'm realizing as I become a father and we talk a lot, that there's no manual and that he was guessing the whole time.
Yeah, that's all we're doing. And someone, I just heard something on a meme or a video or TikTok or something, said when you realize your parents aren't all knowing.
Yeah.
And they aren't some mythical being that know everything. They really just figuring it out. It's an epiphany type moment.
Yeah.
When you become a parent and you realize you just guessing, and you're like, hold on. I was taking what they were saying as gospel, and they was just guessing out here.
It was trying to do the best with whatever they had.
Yep.
But this kind of connects back to the Master P story. Because watch this. One accusation, was about Romeo was saying he wasn't getting paid and all this other stuff. Now, this is where, as fathers and men, we are at an impasse, because I think we did a show on this one time before, about a year and a half ago, maybe. And TD Jakes was talking about that if you're going to make money, we can't be home.
Right.
And if we be home, we can't make money. So we got there's no thing to that. And that was one of the accusations from Master, because everybody know Master P is still a hard worker, and he never stopped.
Nope.
But
we know he hands in a lot of things, and we know he was a very busy man. So by that estimation, you know, especially at the time before, because he started before the social media age.
Yeah.
You really had to go everywhere.
Hmm. I heard a story, saying he had to do meeting here and then fly out to Vegas and then go to LA, like all in the same day.
Hmm.
Man, I can't do that job. But if he doing all that, he can't be home.
Right. But to a certain degree, he remedied that by having his family and his kids with him.
Yeah, he did.
He took them with him a lot of places, made sure they were there. And as I, listening to other successful people, that's a common thing. They spend the money necessary to keep their family with them, to keep their kids
Mhm.
with them. Anything that they can bring their kids to, they bring them because they realize I'm not there.
So look at this. So Terry said getting paid, he wasn't old enough to manage that money.
Exactly.
But his was two things. Because when you're working with your dad, getting paid. It ain't no getting paid. But who's to say he didn't pay him directly, but put the money in the little side account?
Well, all right. What do we know? We know Lil Romeo had a couple songs. We know he had the little show. But all of these things are going on 15, 20 years plus
Mm-hmm.
old now. So
Yeah.
even if he got the money or the money was put aside, how do we really believe that money's still there? If you live
Mm-mm.
in the kind of lifestyle he had become accustomed to that was provided by his
Yeah.
father,
Mm-hmm.
I doubt if he even still got it. I bet if you went and ran up those checks and added them all total compared to what's been spent on Romeo's life and what he actually made, probably nowhere close to
It remind me of the WNBA.
it. Mm-hmm.
I'm saying, let's put it together. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of your stuff is subsidized, but you ain't really bringing in that much.
Right.
Um, but and this points to the still encompassing idea that once we done raising our kids, what they do is on them. And this is a perfect example of that.
Well, I mean, in Romeo's case, and in a lot of kids' case, I seem to see this issue of my parents didn't do enough for me
Yeah.
generally comes from children whose parents were at least middle class.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really see really poor kids saying my parents didn't do enough for me. They know their parents didn't have it.
Uh-huh.
But the middle class kids and upper class kids, for some reason, feel like, oh, their parents had all of this and didn't share. I guess share enough or give me what they should have gave me, or whatever. You see it a lot in that particular, class of, especially the middle class.
Mm-hmm.
You see it a whole lot, but they never think about the fact that your parents made sure you went to college and gave you an education.
Yeah.
Romeo went to USC.
Yes, he did.
That alone, just going to college, that means your parents made a major effort to make sure you had skills to take care of yourself.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
because a lot of being a parent is not me just giving you stuff. A lot of being a parent is me making sure you can give yourself.
So let's draw another connection. Same scenario, slightly but different. And I was involved in this Facebook conversation about this
Okay.
earlier this week. People are upset about Nick Cannon having a bunch of kids.
Okay.
So the question is, and you started this thing off by saying fatherhood is more about the providing part, right?
It's more than
Um,
just the providing part.
it's more than that.
Mm-hmm.
So how would this factor in with this Nick Cannon situation, which his motivations for doing this? I mean, I have my own speculations, but that's not even about what the thing about the fact that he had 12 kids by a bunch of different women.
Okay. I'm not going to talk about his motivation, even though I want
Mm,
to. Not gonna talk about.
Yeah, I know.
In the case of Nick with all the kids, well, one, he does have the financial situation to take care of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
He also has the ability, because of his income, to legally get whatever type of custody he wants to try to work on, as
Mm-hmm.
well as the means to have them all together at whatever time he wants.
Mm-hmm.
Has the ability to do this. Do I think the women that are doing it are in it for the money? Of course. We know
Mm-hmm.
that. They want the checks. It's a good business. Have a millionaire's baby. It's a good business.
Of course.
In today's age. Do I think he is making it very difficult for him to give all of those children the love and attention and care they need? Yes.
Yes. Now that's the part, and that was the thing, because the first thing came out of the conversation was, and I said this too. This is what I said. Why should we be worried about how many kids he's having, and I don't have to pay for them?
Exactly. I'm far more concerned with Lil Mook Mook running around the hood knocking up 8, 9 women than I am about Nick Cannon. Because I'm gonna end up paying. I'm gonna end up putting something on Lil Mook Mook kids in more ways than one.
You'll put a whole bunch on them.
Yeah.
There you go.
Cause
So
9 times out of 10, Lil Mook Mook kids gonna be the ones coming to my house trying to rob me.
or be in school turning it out, and I got to deal with them.
Right.
So again, the father's role.
Right.
But then who's to say that he don't see his kids? Who's to say that he don't deal? We don't know that.
Like I said, he has the means to keep it, to make sure he can see his kids when he wants to. They can see him. I can have all 12. I got a house big enough where all 12 of them can come and be comfortable.
That's right. Or who's to say that he don't have a house in all these states wherever they live, and he just go around?
What if he spent a month out each he spent a month in each household? He can afford to do any of that.
Exactly. So, but then again, like we said, there's no manual for it.
No manual.
So look at these comments. So Terry said, one, we know longshoremen with more kids. That I'm just saying.
He's not lying.
No, not at all. Not at all. But then ain't nobody say nothing. He taking care of them. So why is it that we seem to want to police what fathers do? We want to police what fathers do.
Well, I'll give you another public father that gets a lot of flack. LeVar Ball.
Okay.
Now, people seem to have this big issue with LeVar Ball and all the things he's taught. All this man has done is put 2 sons in the NBA and another one playing overseas foreign basketball. Runs his own businesses out of, in his neighborhood, takes care of his wife and his family. And yeah, he talk a lot of trash, but who doesn't?
That's why they ain't like him.
So that's all this man has done. And been married to the same woman for almost 30 years.
Yes.
So you tell me the bad example LeVar Ball is setting.
Not one. Because what he's teaching his kids is how to deal with people, how to talk to people.
He's teaching his children. He's showing the example of a black man who worked hard, had a goal, accomplished the goal, and I don't have to apologize to none of y'all for it.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I'm not mad at it. I mean, now the way he speaks and stuff is it how I would do it? No. But that don't make it wrong.
No. It definitely seems to be a common thread in society that black men, especially black fathers, who are active in the lives of their sons who have become athletes and stars, they tend to try to trash them and make them look bad. When I feel 100% confident that man is doing everything he can to protect his sons.
And that's what it's about. But they get to the point where these dudes are canceled and banned, everything else because of that, but again, like I said, like we going back to the beginning, there's no manual. There's no one way to do it. Oh, hold on, bro. Hold on. OG in the house.
Now give me my theme music.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. So OG said most are jealous because he's with multiple women while they're with one.
There it is.
But then the heat be coming from the mothers, like not his mothers of his children, but mothers everywhere else, because there's like
Because they jealous.
this.
Because they jealous.
Yeah,
They jealous that they didn't hit the Nick Cannon jackpot.
you know what I think? I think some of them want it done the way they want it done,
Of course.
and that's not acceptable for somebody to do it a different way.
Listen, I've said multiple times, in the case of women, a man does not have to be right or wrong. He simply has to do something she doesn't like.
Yeah.
He is a villain. And that's just the way it is, and that's okay. You know, they talked about that. We talked about that in the Superior Man in the book study.
Yes. Yes. And that, like we talked about earlier, that's the stuff that helped me to understand why things were happening, why it was happening. And it helped me to better deal with the stuff. You know, even stuff my wife say now is to the point where I hear what she's saying and I can see through it to see
Right.
what the real issue is or
Right.
her real desire is. Man, that helped me so much. Look at this. So Terry said, when we was talking about being paid, Theodore Turner never paid me. Put your shoes on, let's go. He fed and clothed me, taught me how to work, and I learned a work ethic.
There it is.
Man, for me, it was James Hicks. Boy, my granddaddy, he had 10 kids. That mean that I had a lot of cousins.
Yes, it did.
And he did a lot of work in the fields and stuff like that. So guess who was out there working in the fields?
You and your cousins.
Bruh, I was like 8, 9, 10 years old with a machete cutting down sugar cane. I'm just saying, I would be like, yeah, cut all this grass over here. Or come on, let's get on this tractor and go over here. So it's like 5, 6 of us sitting on the tractor, we riding down the road to the field. But that's the work ethic. And I would say this to the fathers that are not as physical as that. Because yeah, I grew up like that, but I don't have to do that no more. But my version of work ethic is different.
Yeah.
And I always talk about my son because I am very well pleased at the young man he's turning into. And I was telling somebody the other day, when you get to that point where they're finally doing everything you taught them,
yeah,
and it's intense to the point where it's like it's surprising. You know, I told my son, every time you go somewhere, every time you do something, you need to put 100% every time and make it to the point where people see you coming and they'll be like, oh crap, there he go again.
There it is.
And I told him to realize who he is because he came from me. And he came from my dad and my granddad on both sides. He has that. He need to let his gift work.
Direct
and now he doing it, and I'm always shocked. And I'm like, it took a while to get it. But that's the thing that we teach him, the work ethic, how to be, just how to be. So as fathers, man, we got to keep doing that because nobody understands it. They don't.
And that's and you at the point now, you know, you laid the groundwork, you taught him some things, you made sure he was aware of the world around him. Now you at the point where you get to sit back and be the cheerleader.
Oh yeah.
You know, you just look at my work right there. It's beautiful.
Oh yeah, man.
That's the goal. The goal is to give your child enough skills and enough ability to function in the world where you get to the point where you can get to the point where you can sit back and just be a cheerleader.
Yeah, but then also we got to let them fail.
Yeah.
And that's back to the beginning with Master P and Romeo. Because once he left up under his wing, you had to let him fail. He wasn't dragging him along no more.
Right.
Could you notice it was at one point he was like, me and my son doing this, me and my son doing it. He was putting him in the spotlight repetitively. But his son didn't realize that.
No. I mean, gave him a lot to work with, but at some point he got to do the work.
You know? Now, but I will say this though, and I know this had a happy ending. It had a happy ending. and I want to say about a week ago, it said Romeo wrote about squashing the issues with Master P after having some very hard conversations on New Year's Eve. In order to be used, you have to be willing to be misunderstood and humiliated sometimes, he wrote. And, he went into some other examples. But basically, they talked about it.
Yeah.
And they worked it out.
And that's good.
And what I like about it is Master P was saying that the whole time. I still love you. I heard it. I still love you. When you're ready to come back, my door is always open.
Right.
So that draws in direct direct opposition to this other video I saw. And it really hurt my heart.
Okay.
Where the guy, it showed this young man on the phone talking to his dad.
Okay.
And the dad was like, I ain't coming to pick y'all up no more. I ain't have nothing. Don't call me for nothing. Don't do this. I mean, because the mom had put him on child support or something like that, and he was mad. It was killing these kids. Like, they was crying like, why, daddy, why? And he just cut them off completely because of the relationship with the mother. And that's in direct opposition with what we just talked about with Master P, who, when something happened, he left the door open. You always welcome here.
Well, I take it back to the there's no manual on how to do this. Now,
Yeah.
Do I wish that father had handled it differently? Because he's definitely making a move. We don't have all the information, but he's definitely making a move that sounds like it's going to be one that's going to be to the hinder and hurt the children. But we don't know. We don't know all the details. We don't know all
That's true.
the whole story. And I'm sure he was dealing with his own personal hurt.
That's
And
it.
I think sometimes we hear something like that, and the initial thing you'll hear people say, "Oh, you should never let what's going on between the parents affect the kids." Well, that oftentimes seems to get said when the father is the one that's losing the opportunity to be with his kids.
Mm-hmm.
And a man should always fight for his kids. Nobody goes into the
Why in the world he got to fight anyway?
right or the cost associated with it,
Mm-hmm.
the time, the energy, the reason, like you said, the reason he got to fight in the first place. We don't have these discussions enough. I'm glad we're having them now.
Mm-hmm.
Social media, that's one thing I will give social media a lot of credit for, is it's giving the opportunity for both sides of the story to be heard more often than not.
Yeah, and I'm definitely thankful for that.
Yeah.
So let's look at some of the comments we got. So we got a couple. So OG said, if you don't explain why you do things, they will never know or find out too late. I agree.
True.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Like with my kids, we tell them everything.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, where I teach, I tell the students everything. So, I can explain it. Okay, this is why we not doing this, or this is why we did this. You tell them so they can understand, because that is a form of teaching. You need to explain stuff, not just saying, do it because I said so. Yeah, you can say that in the moment until they do it, but then come back and say, all right, this is why we do this. So that way, when your son or daughter grows up, they know why you did certain things, and then they can replicate it.
Or do it better.
Oh, that's what I want.
Yeah, because some things we're limited by experience.
Mm-hmm.
We're limited by ability.
Yep.
We're limited by income. We're limited by, in some cases, location.
Yeah.
You might want to provide X, Y, Z to your children, but it doesn't exist where you live.
That's true.
So they may see that and say, I need to do this different or that different. I understand why my dad and my mom did this, but I don't have to, because I can change X, Y, Z about my life.
It's one thing. I'm going to tell you, this is what I learned from my dad. Well, my dad and my mom together. So every year we would take short little trips.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we live here in Georgia, so we would go down to Florida, And I mean, it wasn't like big old theme parks or nothing like that, but we would like go see this museum here, drive here, go to Jacksonville, just quick day trips. We did that a lot.
Right.
And what that showed me, and he always says this, you need to take your kids out and show them the world. You got to show them stuff. So when you say do it better, that's what we did. We do it better.
Yeah.
We took our kids across the country, saw something that they never, ever saw before. And that I never saw before. So, and that caused them to grow. And then I hope when they have children, they're going to do the same thing, keep the tradition going. Mm-hmm. So that's part of our job, is to instill those traditions that cause growth.
Right.
Do stuff on purpose.
Yeah.
Like that. So, man, that pays back. And
you have to. And I'll give you one. My mother took us to right across the bridge, South Carolina, over the Gullah Geechee Nation, and we did a whole tour about how all that was and how it was set up, about that whole Gullah Geechee and all that kind of stuff, and it was a great experience. And the information I learned on that tour has come up no less than 5 times in my life, and just me, gaining some perspective on things.
Exactly. So we had another comment. Now, when we was talking about the guy, telling the kids he won't have nothing to do with them.
Right.
Jamel said he hated, but he could understand the frustration.
Right.
And then he said, now it's impossible not to let the situation affect the children.
I agree, but I would say the biggest thing I would suggest to that man is don't tell your children. Like, I don't think he should have had that conversation with his children, that I ain't never coming to see y'all.
No.
And I think that's one of the things we do wrong in this generation, is too much of the conversations that should happen between adults happens in front of kids.
Man, there's a theory. They did a study on this thing too. And when I explain this thing, you'll see where it start happening. It's called, there's another name for it, but what's coming to my mind is the adultification of children. Right. So what has happened is that children no longer exist. Now, this is what I mean. We don't treat children like children. We treat them like small adults.
Right.
Now let's go back. Do you ever see children's clothing anymore?
Nope.
It's small versions of adult clothing. Now, connecting it to what you said about the conversation and the things we telling them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we treating them like small adults. And not giving them, and that is unfair and damaging, because they don't have the tools and not equipped to deal with this stuff. Because we're treating them like adults, we don't take the time to explain things.
Right.
Because they supposed to already be able to do that.
We expect them to be able to come to some be able to deduce what's going on, and they don't have to develop their brains yet.
But they kids, they don't have your life experience.
Right.
And then that's the part of being a father, giving them that. But I want to touch back on this, something we talked about earlier in the show, about how people can hide things. And that's it. When the father is feeling such a way, a lot of us hide it from our kids for as long as we can. But when we get to that boiling point, that's when the situation starts to affect the children. So how can we solve that? Well, one, talking with somebody who has been through it, or somebody that's willing to listen, or paying a professional for, some mental health assistance. But you got to seek outside things and not let that spill out on them.
Right.
You got to be cognizant of that. Right here, that's why a child doesn't know their place in society today. Yep, Damien said that. Adultification of children. I see it all. Oh, man. Oof.
We could do a whole show on that.
Ooh.
and I've made the mistake personally in my life. My middle daughter knew too much.
Right.
Now, part of that is because she stuck her head in the room,
Mm-hmm.
and she get, but then part of it was because me and her mother didn't do enough to keep her out of it.
Right.
And so I failed on that myself. And I think it's hard to do because it's when you're going through whatever you're going through, it's not like before where the phone was out of reach, the person was out of reach, there was no platform for people to get on and tell the whole story to the world.
Right.
Easy now. You get mad at somebody and you in the car and your kid happen to be in the car. You pick up the phone right then,
Yeah.
and go off on a person, or they call you with some nonsense and you just answer the phone regular and they coming at you crazy. You just trying to get them off the phone, but you don't
Mm-hmm.
realize you said too much in that little 1-2 minutes you was on the phone with them. That child heard the whole thing.
Yeah. And it comes out at school. I see it.
Oh,
And that's when,
teachers know everything.
and they deal with conflict the same way you deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna say this, and this is why this is important for us fathers out there with girls. It is very important to show them how to deal with conflict, because right now, I got girls that deal with conflict in the most ratchet way ever. And you are 13, 14 years old and you grabbing your hands and cussing like a sailor because you
Yep.
don't know how to deal with conflict.
Yep.
So I mean, yeah, that's one job of a father. We have to balance that out. Now, I know a lot of us dealing with the fact that we don't see them or do something. I mean, I know you're trying the best you can, and but you do what you can. So my question is this, and then I think we need to shift on to topic number 2 so we can end this on a high note.
Oh yeah.
How do you, when you recognize that mistake was made, right? How do you go about rectifying that?
I think you have to be extremely diligent about drawing back.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be, intentional and diligent about, I'm not having that conversation with you.
Mm-hmm.
This is the information you need. But what about this? No, you don't need to worry about that. You need to be where I tell you to be when I tell you to be there. This is the information you need. You got to start treating things with your children on a need to know basis. And for the most part, they don't need to know.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need to know the logistics of how and when and how to set up for you to pick them up and all that. You just need to tell them, hey, your daddy gonna be at this location at 9 o'clock.
Right.
Or why, they ask you a question, or why you and mama this or you and mama that. That's none of your business.
Mm-hmm.
Just know I love you and she loves you.
That's right. That is right.
And you just have to be diligent about drawing that back. And then the children will pick up in short order. I can't ask those questions anymore.
Right. Because you're not going to tell them.
Right. And they're going to be frustrated about it. And
Mm-hmm.
my daughter actually said at one point I feel like she said, I had to suffer through it with y'all. And I feel like I deserve to know everything that went on. And I told her, no, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
But to a certain degree, she was far more involved than she ever should have been.
Right.
And that's on me. So I can't get mad at her for feeling that way.
Mm-hmm.
I have to explain to her that's not, daddy made a mistake, mama made a mistake, and we have to do things differently moving forward.
So the lesson to come out.
As parents, we want to admit we made a mistake.
Okay. And I guess the lesson out of that is what you said, it's okay to admit that we made the mistakes.
Right.
And to own up to that part. But also, there's nothing wrong with recognizing you made a mistake, even no matter how long after the fact, and making an attempt to fix it.
Right.
So that goes a long way. All right, man. Any last words on this? Because he is me. That was supposed to be the thing. I do a lot of he is me.
Right.
And we will be coming back to this in a more detailed thing. But any last words on anything we talked about so far? Because we need to move to part 2. And y'all want to be online for that.
Just the main thing, there's no manual for this. I know and you know you making it up as you're going along. You're gonna make mistakes. Keep trying to do better. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay. For me, it's part of an interconnected thing. And I think as dads and fathers, we need to understand how the world works. We need to understand a lot of things in order for us to better teach our children. And if you mess up, it's okay to say, yeah, I messed that up. I didn't know. And talk to them. That's the biggest issue I see. People don't talk to their children. And when I say talk to them, yeah, you could talk to them about serious stuff, but they don't even talk to them about other stuff.
Right.
Like just whatever.
Yeah.
Talk to them. Like, I know I didn't do a nerd show last night, but I'm going to clue y'all in because this is the next one. And just talking. I was talking to my son. They was watching The Last Dragon because, you know, that's the pinnacle.
One of my favorites.
But the scene where Bruce Lee was fighting all the people, right? You know, when he was watching it. And I said, yeah, man, Bruce Lee is it. And my son was like, yeah, that ain't real. Bruce Lee can't beat them. And I said, what? Man, it's going to take at least 10 dudes to take down Bruce Lee. And we talked for like an hour about how many men it would take to take down Bruce Lee versus Jackie Chan.
Right.
What? I said it's going to take Jackie Chan 15 dudes. So that's coming on a nerd show. But I'm saying, just talking about that stuff with your kids. I mean, just anything out of the way. Pokemon, doggone, what's happening at school. You know, dads, talk to your kids.
Yep.
Hey, Jamel said you got to watch that with the kids. Yes, especially when Bruce Leroy goes Super Saiyan.
Oh, yeah. The first Super Saiyan was a black man. I don't care what nobody says.
But, you know, exposing them to that stuff, man. And yeah. So, yeah, that's what I got to say about that. All right. Now, the second thing we wanted to talk about today, and this is important, and I'm not going to let this be bound because it's not technically the new year. Setting our goals and actually moving toward it. As y'all know, we are planning this whole mastermind group with setting goals. It's going to be a bunch of dudes in there together, and we're going to tell each other what our goal. We're going to say what it is. I'm going to coach you on how to write it. And we're going to hold each other accountable for it. So you come to the group, hey, man, I didn't do this week. Why didn't you do it? Well, this happened. Okay, well, how can you help that not to happen next week? You know, just kind of keep us going. So let's talk about why setting goals is important. So what you got to say on that?
Okay, first off, setting goals is important because we as people need direction.
Mm-hmm.
And setting your goals will give you some direction. I think the trap most of us fall into when it comes to our goals is we don't write them down and we don't develop a real plan to get them. And I think that's why what we want to do coming up this week is so important. I think this goes back to one of those things I always talk about, this between knowing something and applying something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where a lot of us fall short. We don't know exactly how to apply the steps necessary to accomplish a goal. And then we also don't have the right people, in some cases around us, to hold us accountable to those things.
Yeah. Now he said, Damien said, write the vision down and make it plain. Yep, that's in the Bible. But now I'm gonna say this about these goals and stuff. I would say we're not serious enough about what we do. We are not intentional enough about what we do. We'll say things a lot. Okay, I'm making a New Year's resolution. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And you say it, but it's not real.
Right.
Until you write it.
Yep.
And when I say not serious enough, we don't put enough thought into it. We just say, oh yeah, I'm gonna exercise this year. And then you get up and just start doing it. But no, what I'm proposing is that we sit down and write a SMART goal. Specific, measurable, actionable, time related. What the heck? I wrote that thing down. I always mess
Realistic,
up with the SMART
real,
goals. Oh, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound.
yeah,
So in that group, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna turn your regular resolution or goal into a SMART goal. We're gonna dig into this thing
yeah,
and make it very specific. So every week you can do something.
that's right.
But yeah, like I said, we don't take it serious. So if you want to achieve this stuff, we're gonna take it serious. And that way, once you achieve it, then you can move to the next one, and then you can teach your children how to do it. So Jamel said we let distractions become excuses.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. Hey, David say that's scriptures.
we so much in life is about intention,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to be intentional. And it's amazing how we put intention behind things that distract us from the real stuff. And people, I said this to someone earlier this week, and they said, "What you mean?" I said, "You know, we'll say we want to do this or we want to do this, but we paying for that Netflix subscription every month on time, so
Mm-hmm.
we can sit down and watch TV. So what are you willing to make the same type of investment in your goal?
That's right.
You know,
Yep.
and be realistic. And for a lot of us, the financial investment is not even the biggest thing.
Ooh, boy, you setting it off right there. Go ahead.
For a lot of us, the biggest thing is the time.
Mm-hmm.
We are more dedicated to spending time doing nothing
Yeah.
than we are dedicated to spending our time doing something that's going to help us long term. Um, and I've been doing pretty well with my fitness and exercise. My weight is down. I'm healthier. I'm stronger. But I had to really make myself do it.
Uh-huh.
You know, and I set a simple goal. The initial goal I set for me was it was late September. It was 130 days or so left in the school year. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
in the calendar year. And I said, I just want to go to the gym 100 days before the end
See?
of the year.
Perfect.
I'm not concerned with what exercise I do, how much I lift, none of that stuff. That'll take care of itself. If I get up and go in this gym 100 times before the end of the year, I'll lose weight. I'll feel better. I'll feel stronger. Everything, and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
You got to make your goals into something you can. Like, if I'd have said I want to lose 60 pounds, who knows?
Yeah. See?
You know? But the fact that I said that was extremely measurable. I go to LA Fitness. There's an app. Inside the app on LA Fitness, it shows you every day you went to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
So I could look back at any time and count up the days. I made it to 102 days.
Okay.
You know, I did 102 days for the end of the year. So you got to be able to do that. So now I got to come back and reset myself for this year. I made it to the end of the year. What's my new goal on the side as far as fitness? How do I want to measure it this year? Do I want to just say I want to average 3 days a week? Do I want to say I want to, get to this many miles run in the same 20 minutes I've been doing on the treadmill? But I want to make, instead of doing 1.5, I want to say, okay, I want to get to 2.5 miles in the same 20 minutes. I gotta create a measurable goal for myself.
And that sounds like, remember the chapter in The Way of the Superior Man? This is what he was talking about when we said men had to have a battle to fight.
Right.
We always searching for the next battle to fight. You can control what battle you fight. We got to have something we working toward to achieve freedom. And that's how he says it. And freedom is when you achieve a goal, that you're
Yep.
free. So that's a part of what sparked this thing too. You know, I want to help us find our battles to fight and not waste our time on stuff that doesn't benefit us or our families.
Right.
Because we waste a lot of time on stuff. Insignificant stuff. Or we don't take the best advantage of our time, or we find, like he said right here, distractions become excuses.
Yep.
We allow small things to become obstacles. We never figure out how we're going to get around those obstacles. For instance, for me, when I was writing my doctoral study, I still had to be a dad. I still had to be a husband. I still had to work. I still went on vacations with the kids because I wasn't going to miss that.
Nope.
But what I did discover, and when I was learning, is that it's something I call the in between.
Mm.
And the in between is the time in between the major tasks that you do.
Yep.
You can use that time. So how did I do that? The in between, going from one location to the next. We driving. So I let my wife drive so I can use my laptop or my phone to write my paper, because that was in between time when I was just sitting there listening to music.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're trying to listen to an audio book, okay, stop listening to music and you're in between from when you leave the house and go to work. Listen to that.
That's what I do.
See, the in between.
Yep.
So we have to take advantage of all of that. But it's important, man. We got to do this stuff.
Oh, and I want to send a quick note, because you was talking about the audiobook thing. For all the people out here who have an Amazon Prime subscription, there are free audiobooks that you get. It's a free audio subscription with Audible you can get through Prime.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to pay for it. You can get almost a complete library of what's on Audible and what's on Prime, and all the books. All the books we do on the book study are there. So what I'm saying to you is, all these little subscription services we're paying for have extra stuff that's included with them. Please go do your research and get your value out of this.
I'm going to try to set something up where we can get some kind of discount with that.
Okay.
I'm gonna look into that and see how we can get a Book of Man like Audible discount or something with them. So I'm gonna try to do that this year. But also, I mean, the public library have audiobooks. They do, because I have my students get them all the time, and you do it online. So I mean, so for one, if you're not a good reader, or it's hard to read, or that presents an issue, instead of just saying, oh well, I just ain't gonna do it because I don't like to read, we figure out a way around that. We do it. Or even with exercise. Okay, I don't have time to do this exercise. I don't have time to do that. So either one, you can get up earlier or stay up later. That's it. Or find other ways to do it, like parking further in the parking lot, starting off with walking more.
Yep.
You don't have to hit it hard. Walk when you get home, walk around the block, come back. Start with 30 minutes a day.
After eat dinner. When you get through eating dinner, get up and walk around the block. So turn the TV on.
For me, my diet, because I'm diabetic, man. So diet, holidays destroys my diet. My A1C is all over the place. But one thing that we did, and that we're going to start back up again, is getting that meal service, the HelloFresh meal service.
Yeah.
Man, you pay for that. It's like, it's 3 of us in here eating now. So I pay like maybe $89, $90 a week. 3 meals, 3 servings. And it's all fresh, healthy stuff. You just cook it.
Yeah.
It come with everything. So then people say, oh, well, then that's spending too much money because I still got to buy groceries. No, you don't, because they sending you the groceries.
Yep.
You just go there and get whatever healthy snacks or whatever you want. It's still the same thing. I'm going to have some discounts for that coming up too.
and just, be intentional, be disciplined, and be dedicated. You got to realize you have already, if you set a goal to do something, you've already realized what you currently have was not the best thing to have. Or you needed something to get to wherever you were trying to go, you needed something more. You already realized that. So stick to it.
That's right. That's right. And one thing that I found is talking to someone else about it and not keeping it bottled to yourself.
Yep.
Talk to somebody else about it. That way, you either got to tell them you didn't do it, or you can celebrate.
Yep.
And that's a part of what we want to do too, is opening up the conversation between us men.
Yeah.
And not only talking about problems in the world, but a lot of good stuff too. We want to celebrate that and get these goals and stuff going. I mean, so it's going to be good. Tomorrow afternoon, we're going to start just maybe putting out the expectations and things you should bring and what you need to get to help yourself. And we're going to go over how to write these goals down. Cause yeah, you're going to have to write.
Yeah.
Like we going all in 1,000%. You're going to have to write. You got to do all of this stuff and watch it work. 90 days.
90 days. All
Yep.
right. So everybody, if you're listening, we're going to send out some notes in the group.
Yep.
About times and things that you need to bring, and what we hope you have together. And if you do not have a particular goal yet, that is okay.
We're gonna help you.
Still join us. We can talk about that. We can talk about, you can just tell us some things you're into or you want to do, and maybe we can help you set a goal up.
That's how it starts, man. You look at your life and say what things you want to adjust, and then you get goals from there. That's how the program gonna work.
Even if you don't quote unquote have a goal or set for the year, join us. We'll help you do that too. And we really want some guys, be a part of it, be engaged. We're gonna try not to eat up too much of anybody's time. We know we all got busy lives, but the whole point of this is we want to be better men. The whole point of the Book of Man is building better men. And
that's right.
Start that by setting our intentions, setting our goals, and getting those things done.
For sure. So, all right, man. So you want to take us to the house? I guess that was it. Huh?
Just let me say this about the show overall. This fatherhood thing is a work in progress for us all. Do the best you can, and stay in that pocket, man, and just keep pushing because our children need us. And then let's get these goals together, fellas. Let's get these goals. Let's get them set. Let's accomplish them. Let's show the people in our lives they can be one thing at a point and then be better the next time.
That's right.
So we're going to do this. We love you. Have a wonderful weekend. We out.
Peace.